Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Mad Army Podcast, Behind the Scenes. And we are on the second to last one, well actually, third to last one, because we have two more, TakeOver and WrestleMania. So this was Elimination Chamber, Season 7, Episode 49. And it was a long show. I think it fell 10 minutes short of WrestleMania Season 4, which I believe is the longest show we've had at 4 hours and 12 minutes. It was a long show. To be fair, there was 7 Elimination Chamber matches, a few segments, promo, or 2 promos. So there's additions. If you cut all that down, you might have gotten 3 hours and 50 some odd minutes, but it still would have been a long time. A long show. Hence why I did it early. Also, side disclaimer for anybody that doesn't know, I'm probably going to be delaying Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. I don't know when I'm going to get around to them. Probably the week after this upcoming one, if I'm lucky. I don't know for sure, but they're going to be stretched out. So just bear that in mind if you're expecting something to happen next weekend. No. So yeah, let's get right into the video. So first off, the Hardcore Championship fight, AJ Styles versus Randy Orton versus Batista versus Corbin versus McIntyre versus Aleister Black. So, the idea behind this match was, ultimately, I had to make plan changes because Road Killer was originally going to walk into the Royal Rumble and lose the championship to Randy Orton. Orton was going to become a 7-time champion there. Instead, I held it off to fit the storyline for the Hitmen, doing a little reunion run. So I pushed Orton's victory to Elimination Chamber. I decided that, I think, right after the Royal Rumble. It didn't matter who was going to be it, but ultimately I was thinking Max Webb was going to walk in champion. Ultimately, it turned out that it was going to be AJ because I lost the match at SmackDown, but AJ walked in, put over a lot of people, and then AJ and Orton had a little back and forth. The ending was really fun in my opinion. I wish I beat him with an avalanche RKO or the punt kick, but honestly, it was a good ending to the first one. I think I'll do the ratings in the comments section of that video, so if you want to go back and check it out, wage your opinion if you want to, feel free. And then afterwards, Scott Cole attacked the Assassin. This was to write off their possible rematch for the Raw Tag Team titles to later on. Also, it fits Scott Cole's narrative because he's been attacking, or he had to attack 4 people. He didn't have to, but ultimately he chose to attack 4 people in retaliation to Harvey rejecting his demand for a match at WrestleMania 4 times. So that was the first out of 3 that happened tonight to make it up to a total of 4. After that, it was the United States Championship match. For matchup number 2, Braden McLaughlin defending against Ricochet, Ciampa, Killian Dane, Kurt Angle, and Jeff Sanders. The original idea, the very original idea, was that Braden was going to retain. This is all the way back, talking about all the way back in around SummerSlam, Clash of Champions. I was talking about the early concept of it, and I was thinking Braden was going to retain through there. However, based on how I wrote WrestleMania, I won't say it. You know what? I won't go too far in depth. If I remember it, I'll talk about it at the WrestleMania podcast. But this, I decided, was going to change hands here to Jeff Sanders. I had Jeff Sanders winning it. Ultimately, he got pinned, which shocked me. I was playing as Ricochet as the backup. Ricochet was the plan B if things went wrong. Jeff Sanders was going to be the A. Mainly because I sometimes switch it off. I don't want to always be the guy who gets the pin or submission wins to make it feel less predictable or to throw you guys off. That's me trying to misdirect you. And sometimes things go wrong and you kind of just have to cover up because I know, for example, Kevin MR was fully behind Jeff Sanders, and he lost, and then, booing the crap out of Ricochet. But my thought process was, well, Ricochet was the backup plan. I had Sanders as the slated one. Choosing Ricochet as like, okay, well, if Sanders doesn't win, then I'll just have Ricochet. I'll just dominate with Ricochet to win. And I'll plan and I'll execute a backup plan for Raw and WrestleMania. So it was fine. It ultimately fell to plan B because Jeff Sanders got pinned by Ciampa, and then Ricochet got the win. Ricochet becomes the first ever, wins his first United States Championship. Brady McLaughlin could still have an argument for a match. Yeah, and so on. So we'll see what happens on Raw. I'll think of something. But yeah, just to let you guys know, it changed from Braden to Jeff, and Ricochet was the backup. So that's all that happened for that match. I can't remember when I did the second attack by Scott Cole, but I had an attack Baron Corbin. I think it was after the fourth match. No, after the third match. I can't remember. But basically, he attacks Baron Corbin. That's the second person he attacks tonight. All right, the Cruiserweight Championship. Finn Balor defends against Mustafa Ali, Cedric Alexander, Tyler Bate, Adrian Galerto, and Johnny Gargano. So, I was thinking I was going to have Galerto break the record tonight. The record being the most championship reigns by anybody. If you total up every title they've ever won, the record is in a three-way tie with Class Bar, Armstrong, and Galerto at 12. I was thinking, all right, Galerto will just break it at 13. And the crowd, or you guys, at least Kevin, really rallied behind Tyler Bate. And I figured, you know what? I'll change the plans. I'll let Tyler Bate win, but I'll make people think I'm going to beat him with Galerto. Really put him over as a big babyface. And that's ultimately what happened. The veteran loses to the young Tyler Bate. Tyler Bate becomes a two-time Cruiserweight champion. So 2 matches in a row, and I kind of just changed plans or had a backup plan. So stuff like that. I had... My original idea was Balor was going to put over Tyler Bate at WrestleMania for the championship, but it's changed. I don't know where I'm exact. I don't have. If I'm looking at WrestleMania right now, the pre-show is in a lot of is marked up all over the place. Same with the main card, but for the most part, the main card I have over half the matches completely solidified. I've had a few of them solidified for a long time, but if you saw like the card now, it's just like completely marked up with just, I don't know who's going here, just concept ideas running all over the place with and how I'm structuring the whole cards. It's chaos right now, which is a fitting theme for this final road to WrestleMania. It has been nothing but chaos. I think a good kind of chaos where I'm throwing people, but at the same time, I have a general idea of where I'm going. And especially with the big title matches and several other marquee matches for WrestleMania, I've kept several under the rug. I've lied to Kevin plenty of times about certain storylines or certain people not having these plans simply because I'm evil. So yeah, he's definitely heard me talk about things, but trust me when I say this, I have lied through my teeth to him for the two that care, Alex and Panda, who are constantly questioning what he knows. Yes, he does know some things. He's even helped me with certain things, but at the same time, he thinks he knows other things that I've lied to him about. So, I've kept him out of the loop on quite a bit, which is good. I'm still manipulating him. He's merely a puppet in the grand scheme of things. Nonetheless, we moved to matchup number 4, the Hitmen versus the Hardy Boys. The Hardy Boys were to replace Assassin and MK because Assassin got hurt. I was originally going to have this be a pretty solid match, but since the first 3 fights took up an hour and a half, I was thinking, crap. Well, if we do all 8 fights, and if it goes the same way, it's all going to total up to 4 hours exactly. So I decided to have the Hitmen go real quick to hopefully save time. That ultimately didn't happen because I ran longer with one match that we'll talk about. But yeah, I thought it was a good time saver. It establishes the Hitmen still as dominant despite Slim Reaper being gone for several seasons. It's a nice little nostalgia act. They did a bunch of cool moves. and it sets them hopefully up for the future. And it also made sense storyline-wise that Rogue and Slim would try to end it quickly because Rogue Killer was fighting later in the night. So there's that as well to consider. But I had the Hitmen going over this whole time. I didn't have them losing. It was just figuring out who was going to be their opponents at the show. All right, so Intercontinental Championship match. I will say this once again: Blake Daniels was the plan for pretty recently, as a matter of fact, right before Mayhem. No, right around Survivor Series was the plan shift. So originally this was going to be, gosh, should I have winning this? Or who was I thinking about having as the champion? Ultimately, I was saving Kyle O'Reilly. He was never going to win at the Royal Rumble, so it was all about who was going to be the champion. Adam Cole, I think I had the belt taken off him. I wish I remembered this stuff because I no longer have that. Who was going to beat him, who my original concept was, so I apologize for not knowing off the top of my head. I'm trying to be as thorough as I can with all this. But the plan shifted to Blake Daniels. We're trying to turn him as a full-on heel. And we had Blake Daniels defending the Intercontinental Championship against Samoa Joe, Shinsuke Nakamura, Daniel Bryan, Elias, and Max Webb. So I'll be honest, I was looking at the card, the Intercontinental Championship match. I had Elias penciled in for the WWE title match, and I had Rollins in for the Intercontinental Championship. But when I looked back at it right before I started the show, I didn't look over the fact that I already had Elias there for the WWE title. And I just looked at the Intercontinental Championship and saw Rollins, and I'm like, man, Elias isn't on the show? This is a crime. I put Elias in there, and ultimately I had to flip places because I realized right before the WWE title match, I screwed up. So, but I think it works better for Elias because, if anybody doesn't remember or hasn't really watched the series, Elias had his big win for the WWE Championship match back on the 5th season's Elimination Chamber. Huge pop from the guys. They loved it, which warmed my heart. Despite it being a one-off championship run that was never originally planned, it was literally changed at the last second. I thought it was great for that moment. And then to keep Elias still looking strong in the chamber, having him be the final two for Blake Daniels. And plus, Elias, I think, is at the point where the people who watch this show are fairly well behind him. So even after 2 seasons of that reign being gone, so having him as the final two and getting that near fall on Blake Daniels, and then only for Blake Daniels to beat him, helps paint Blake Daniels in more of the heelish fashion. And, of course, Blake got a few roll-up eliminations, continuing to try to solidify him as this new heel. So Blake Daniels ultimately retained the championship. That was the plan. Kyle O'Reilly, we'll have to see when he comes back. I'm not saying anything, because that's not fun. It's not fun if I just tell you guys. We'll talk about it, possibly in the TakeOver podcast, if there's anything that's involved with it, or the WrestleMania one. So we'll see what happens with Kyle O'Reilly and Adam Cole and Blake Daniels. That's a trifecta right there of controversy. All right, on to the Universal Championship match. I can't lie to you all. It didn't matter who was going to be in this match. Sante was going to retain. Mainly because Grudge put in his request to me a while ago. I think it was around Clash of Champions or even before that. No, it was around SummerSlam. I say around SummerSlam. It could have been slightly before, slightly afterwards, somewhere in that general vicinity when we were talking about him. Because I've already told you all, the plan was for him to become world champion, to cash in at Survivor Series. And the concept was he was going to hold it even through elimination, through the Rumble, through Elimination Chamber, and to Mania. Now, I don't want to go into it just yet because we're not there yet. But so it didn't matter who was going to be in it, but I still wanted to put people in there that got some hype. So I wanted to give Dream a spotlight there, Davis King, Roman Reigns as this guy that you can all boo in favor of Sante, Raymond Cruz, and Rey Mysterio. Rey Mysterio was a little bit of a nod for Sante, considering that in storyline he's the son of Eddie Guerrero. And for Raymond Cruz, it was to put him on screen and then have Bray Wyatt do a promo afterwards, accepting the challenge for WrestleMania. But ultimately Sante won, and he's already told me who he wants for the show. He told me all the way back then when we were discussing it. So it's all about execution, and hopefully it's well received. If it's not, well, when crap hits the fan, some guys run and some guys stay, and I will face the fire that you guys will bring me. I will face the hellfire and brimstone you guys will rain down on me if you disagree with my decision. It's fine. I think I'm not trying to cover up this only to get you guys like, oh, well, I guess we have to cheer for it. No, you don't. If you don't like who I choose, that's completely fine. It's in your opinion. What I am going to say here is I have stressed over this card so much so that I'm hoping, beyond hope, that there is enough matches that fit my mindset where, because I always have this mentality, have a few matches, at least have one or two matches that are in favor of the people and what they want, so then you can still find ways to appease them on the card to where they can sit there and say, okay, that wasn't too bad, and still like pursue your own. So if you guys disagree with it, okay, well, that's one match that I'm personally doing, and then the other matches, so there's several other marquee matches that I have listed that either are being well received or could be well received by you guys. So it's up in the air right now in terms of how you guys will react, because you guys don't know till Raw. But I just wanted to get that out of the way because I try to compromise to the best of my ability. If it's an opponent you guys don't like, fine, tough luck. I still think it will be a phenomenal match either way, or I'll try to make it. If you guys disagree, it's completely fine. It's not the main event of WrestleMania. It's not the one that closes out. Also, after the match, Scott Cole attacks Shawn Michaels, the GM of Raw. So that was his final attack of the night. It takes it a step up in terms of, okay, he attacked a GM. What's Triple H going to do? So we'll have to see. That's also to drum up hype for Raw. So there you go. The semi-main event of the show, the WWE Championship Class Par, Colt Lee. It was originally Elias, but it's Seth Rollins, Andrade, Matt King, and Kevin Owens. So, I will tell you this, almost every single name that was in all these matches that weren't the champion or who I wanted to win was just completely thought of the night before or a couple nights before or last week. That is the case here. I had Class Par always slated to retain this match. Colt Lee I threw in there to try to drum up hype. Seth Rollins, of course, was the screw-up. Kevin Owens, I felt so much better about putting him in now that Blake Daniels turned heel and revealed that he was with him. So it turns into this more in-depth character with Kevin Owens being there. It also made sense for Class Par to try to go after him because Blake Daniels was being a bigger antagonist on SmackDown with Kevin Owens. So it worked out in the dynamic. And then Andrade, I definitely knew I wanted to put in here to give him a bigger spotlight. And shockingly, if you watch the match, he pins Colt Lee for the first elimination in a shocking moment for me, mainly because I was just so blown that he hits one hammerlock DDT. Of course, he gets eliminated fairly quickly afterwards, but the important thing is he got a huge pin over one of two guys who are 5-time world champions. Despite losing, I think that still helps Andrade look good, despite his loss. Ultimately, when it comes to Matt King, I will say this. I put him in last second before the show started. I originally had no intention of bringing him back for a fight after the Royal Rumble, but I changed my mind here. Mainly because I looked at it and I thought about it. I thought about it and I thought about it. And what I came to my conclusion was, okay, if I can get Matt King and Class Par one-on-one, then what I can really try to do is... It wasn't necessarily to try to redo the Royal Rumble match, because I really loved the Royal Rumble match. It was just so quick. And this feels more like there's more drama here than ever before between the two, because you've seen how the storyline plays out. You see their two ambitions or their desires, at least for the people who have been there all the time. And then on top of that, you're so close to WrestleMania, people are thinking, oh, is Matt King going to be is he going to pull one last swerve out from under us and completely stun us with Matt King winning? Especially when I changed over. I think I had people for quite some time with it. And I think Class Par and Matt King have continued to prove over and over that almost any time they step in the ring together, whether it's as a tag team or whether it's against, they make magic in some form or another. Class Par was going to retain no matter what. It was just who was putting him over in the final slot, and ultimately it was Matt King. Once again, my philosophy still stands. I don't see a place for me at Mania. Simple as that. I don't see it. I really don't. So I probably won't fight there. So Matt King is probably done. I thought that the Royal Rumble was going to be the last match, but now more than ever, I think that was even a better match, shockingly, than the Royal Rumble fight. So for me, I'm at the point where I'm content. I am content. As emotional as that makes me feel right now, I think I'm content. So yeah, Class Par, the original... we'll talk about it after, because that was the main event segment, or after the main event. The final match, the main event of the fights, was the streak. So basically 6 men were put in a chamber. Armstrong named them after he told how Matt King got his knee brace on SmackDown. He names out 6 people who he wants in the Elimination Chamber. The winner would fight him at WrestleMania for his undefeated streak. He's 6-0 for people who don't know. And the names were Arlington, Adam Cole, Alex Carter, Road Killer, Jamie, and Kevin Draco. What I will say is this. I will tell you the 2 names that I had no intention of actually having win. Alex Carter and Adam Cole. Adam Cole has unfinished business with Kyle O'Reilly, and that whole storyline, so it needs to be wrapped up. He's out. Alex Carter, for other reasons, because I'm going to involve him in a different storyline or a different match at Mania, he's out. Although, to be fair, I actually considered it, but he's been struck off the list for quite a while. It was to give him a big match and hopefully have a good performance. So he was scratched off the list. Road Killer was a last-minute scratch. Actually, not necessarily last minute, mainly because I know people wanted to see Rogue versus Armstrong, but my firm belief is that Rogue versus Armstrong probably should have happened last season. When you think about it, say if Rogue fights Armstrong in season 6, and you look at the timeline, Road Killer could lose to Armstrong at WrestleMania season 6, go on to win the Universal Championship, and then you have Armstrong say, well, I beat you at WrestleMania, so how about we fight one-on-one at that same pay-per-view breakdown, and then Road Killer got the win back. Bam. Armstrong puts him over, solidifies him as a world champion, even more so than just a one-off match from what it feels like. And it threads it more together. So I firmly believe that Road Killer would have made more sense for last season. Plus, because he's involved with the Hitmen, I did not want to do another 2-match event with Road Killer. I don't know for sure which tag team titles I'm going to go with for the pre-show or the main show, but ultimately, because he's involved with Slim Reaper, I want to try and figure out, because I have no idea, personally speaking, who they're going to fight at WrestleMania for the Raw tag team titles. I'm still undecided. Gosh dang it. Anyways, so that struck him off the list because he was involved with Slim Reaper with the tag team titles. So that leaves James Arlington, Jamie, and Kevin Draco. Draco, I have constantly lied to people backstage about having no plans for him. I have a plan for him. It might not be one that you will like, or many of you might think that it is a very small role. And just as a hint, I could be manipulating all of you here. Just keep that in mind when I'm talking about future plans on what I'm going to do. Although I was dead serious, I have no idea who's going to fight for the Raw Tag Team titles at WrestleMania. I have no idea. Nonetheless, Kevin Draco, I do have a plan for him. We'll see how the fans respond. You guys respond to it. I'm hoping it's a warm reception for the decision. I'm really hoping it's well received. But for that, I struck him, but I wanted him in the final 3. So for me, that left Arlington and Jamie. Jamie, I can't lie, and I might as well say it now, because he won the match. My original plan was for him to chase the United States Championship in a WrestleMania, or perhaps be the champion and win it in the chamber. That was kind of the original concept. Of course, Kevin MR pitches the whole idea of, well, why don't you? Because I was stressing. I'm not kidding you. I was stressing this hard about who was going to fight Armstrong at WrestleMania. It was the one match, the one rivalry match. I had no idea who was going to fight him. I've had Armstrong's name build for so long, but then I kept wrestling with different names. Like, I don't know who to fight. I don't know who's going to fight him. I don't know how the fans are going to receive it. I don't know who to choose, because I don't want to choose wrong and then they be completely against the match and have another co-lead situation. That's where my mental state was. I was so concerned, and now I've committed. Although I still can go back on it right now, but between the two, Jamie was the name that Kevin MR threw out. I was still under the impression of James Arlington fighting Armstrong, because when you look at Arlington, only because I had that kind of minor plan for Jamie, which might seem kind of lame to others, but when you look at the card, it's really tough decisions. When it comes to James Arlington, he had the best, I think it's safe to say, although it's still subjective, so others might disagree, but to me, he had the best streak match versus Armstrong at WrestleMania Season 5. That was at the very end of the Bullet Club storyline, so the height of his cocky, arrogant self, but at the same time he was starting to turn over a new leaf to a face, and people were really against it. But I think after 2 seasons of doing almost nothing, aside from winning like the Hardcore Championship, I was really hopeful that people might rally behind him enough for me to really commit to it. Of course, that's me being wishful. It didn't feel like enough support was there, but I think people all had the same consensus that he was a fair opponent, and it kind of made sense for them to have a rematch. But ultimately, I went with someone different at the last second too. In the middle of the match, that was me deciding, and I ultimately kind of forced me because I ate a double pin. But whatever. Jamie, I went with, and that leaves Arlington in a complete limbo position where I have no idea what to do with him now. So I at least had an idea what I was doing with Jamie. Arlington, I planned to have the streak, but I didn't know at the same time how fans were going to exactly react. I don't know. It was tough. It was a tough call. So yeah, it was a really tough call. Ultimately, the decision was made. I don't know how everybody feels about it, but if you want to share your feelings, let me know about the whole thing. So that leads me to the main event segment. Prince Metallico calls out Claspar and Sante, and ultimately chooses Claspar to be his opponent at WrestleMania for the main event. That leaves Sante and all of you to wonder what's going to happen with Sante. Who's he going to fight? And now the question is answered on what is going to headline WrestleMania Season 7. Prince Metallico versus Claspar. I cannot lie to you. I was talking to Grudge. Grudge and I made this decision well, technically I still made the decision, but I was talking to him about it. I might as well talk about it now, but I won't break it down into full detail until WrestleMania. But all the way back when I mentioned about SummerSlam-ish time period, he was talking about who he was thinking about for WrestleMania. I talked about, listen, what kind of guys, who do you want to fight during your reign? What kind of matches, or who do you want to fight throughout your reign? How are we going to write it? That kind of stuff. And then ultimately got to the question of, okay, well, I plan to have you take the title to WrestleMania, but who do you want to fight? He tells me the name. I can't say it because we're not there yet. And I threw out several names. Well, then I asked him about, do you want to main event WrestleMania? I can't remember the full conversation, so I don't know what his answers were. But I know he asked, who did I have in mind? So he was the only guy besides Kevin. I told Kevin last minute because he wasn't going to be there for the match, and he was kind of pleading with me. So I told him, literally the night before. But Grudge knew for a while who was going to the main event. He might have forgotten, but I told him the names. I said that I was leaning predominantly to Prince Metallico, and I really wanted Prince to main event WrestleMania. I said, now, we could have him up against you, but how I'm writing this storyline with the Universal title, you guys already might fight. And he threw out the name that he wanted. I said, okay, well, we need to protect that guy against you. We can't really have you guys crossing paths. And this works out because I can have Prince cross paths with you. Prince can still win the Rumble and then challenge Class Bar. So, to some extent, it worked out. So now Prince jumps to SmackDown, and the storylines continue as we planned. But Prince versus Class Bar has been the plan for a long time, mainly because I wanted those two guys to main event. Here's the thing. I really think Sante's another character that deserves a main event to be in the elite list of who went to main event WrestleMania. With all due respect, Grudge, I still firmly believe you. If it wasn't going to be this season, and if I continue for Mania 8, you'd probably be the main event in some capacity for Mania 8. Or I tried to. But Class Bar, should I just say Panda, I've robbed you so many times, from the first Royal Rumble being the runner-up. To be fair, you were way underbuilt. There was no way you were going to do that. But I've robbed you several times from putting you on the start of the show with me at WrestleMania Season 3. I dorked up WrestleMania Season 2. But Season 4, you were the semi-main event with Armstrong. I think that was the great tease. And then I regulated you to semi-main event of Mania 5. Mania 6, I had you fight Harvey. And then I was like, finally, all right. This guy has been arguably my most loyal viewer all the time, and his gimmick is so over with the fans. We have changed this guy's gimmick, evolved it so much so to make people believe in it or care about it, and he's such a superstar. I cannot sit here and end the series without Class Bar main eventing WrestleMania. Done deal. That was my mentality, and I thought, who am I going to put up against this guy that he might like, and that these fans might sit here and say, yes, this feels like a main event of WrestleMania. And I said, Prince Metallico. I brought Prince Metallico back in Season 6, and the pop that he got every single time that he was fighting, I knew in my heart, this is going to be the main event of WrestleMania. For a long time, I had that feeling. And it feels so good that people have liked it. I was so nervous that people would let alone reject Prince Metallico as the winner of the Rumble. And I was really afraid that people would reject the main event of WrestleMania. But at the same time, this card is stacked. There's a lot of one-on-one matches that I have planned. A lot of high-profile matches. It's going to be a long show at WrestleMania. I'm telling you that. It probably will be. And even if the matches... My plan is to deliver in the matches. And from how I'm building it, a lot of these matches are going to be high drama. So, yeah, congrats on the decision. Ultimately, I won with the decision, but I hope that just shows the confidence I have in this character and how much time and effort you've really put into it. And that's not a knock on anybody else. Draco, Kevin, Grudge. His Grudge has put so much effort into making his attires all the time. There's several other guys I could name. Harvey, Cole Lee, despite putting time and effort in and trying to pitch me ideas for the storylines of NXT, specifically Cole, early on. A lot of people that I wish I could thank. And yeah, there's guys that I wish. It's not a knock on you guys who have watched so many hours as well, but Panda's been there for so long, and I feel like it would be a huge disservice to him if he didn't have, or I would feel like it's a disservice to him if I didn't have him main eventing WrestleMania, especially how over his character is. But nonetheless, people, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Of course, if you choose, let me know down below. Of course, if you wish, what you think WrestleMania will look like. What are your thoughts on the show? If you guys want to offer suggestions on some of the things that I was saying, I have issues or I don't know what I'm doing. If you got a problem with me not being a Mania, fire away and argue with me, because fight me to the death. Nonetheless, hope you all enjoyed the video. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, of course, if you choose. But most importantly, and as always, suit up, Mad Army. I hope to see you all whenever I get around to Monday Night Raw, which might be 2 weeks from now. But nonetheless, suit up, Mad Army.